Joining us right now is Rena Sargianopoulos, and I understand you've been talking to some prominent leaders across the state and getting their reaction today.
Absolutely. I just got off the phone or off a Zoom with former Governor Pawlenty, who served the state for many years and knows very well what's happening here. And so he is concerned that people will not want to do this job anymore.
Who's going to want to run for office?
Who's going to want to run for office? If we can, let's just take a listen to some of what he had to say.
I was just stunned. It's almost like something out of a bad horror movie, the facts of this. And I'm so sad, and I'm sad for the Hortman family, and I hope and pray the Hoffmans come through this after the surgery okay in terms of their medical recovery. And then I also just feel bad about how Minnesota's sort of civic and political fabric seems to be so torn, and in our tradition of great civility seems to be slipping away. And I hope we can all find a way to get back to a better place. Well, things have become more and more polarized, but even when I served, and I was a state legislator and of course governor, and many death threats. And I lived part-time in a suburban home in Eagan, not in the governor's residence, sometimes with security, sometimes not. Many times answering the door, or a family member having to answer the door if I was gone. And you have a lot of people out there who say and do threatening things, and it's going to have a chilling effect on our discourse, on our political leaders, but importantly also their families. Can you imagine being the child or a spouse, a significant other of a political leader in this environment? You know, every time you open the door, every time you go to the grocery store, you don't know who is just going to question you or who might harm you.
Wow, he's always so well spoken. That's really well said.
He had so much more to say too, and maybe we can run a little bit of that sound later. But one of the things that stuck with me is he said, you know, notwithstanding what happened today, Minnesotans on the whole are just good people. They have this Minnesota spirit. We have the highest levels of civic engagement in the country, you know, and he's just hoping that we can all come together again, as we often do as Minnesotans, gather together to try to do better for the people of this state, and of course, because this is happening other places too in this country.
And yeah, to your point, I think we have to be careful. I think we have to be careful not to overrepresent the horrific violent actions of one person. Not to overrepresent that. It's happened, and it is a huge and devastating deal. And yes, commentary is vitriolic on social media and rhetoric is hot and high. But this is one instance that has happened, and as horrific as it is, we have to be very careful not to
conflate it
with everybody's thoughts to violence, right? This is one person, and we don't know what his motivations truly were just yet.
Well, it's interesting too. I mean, he served as governor in 2002, 2006. It feels like a lifetime ago. Served as a Republican governor, won 2 terms here in Minnesota, of course, ran for a 3rd time, also was a presidential candidate for a while. And although it feels like a lifetime ago, it wasn't that long ago, but to say even then that they were getting death threats, and that seems almost like a Pollyanna-ish time compared to what we've lived through in the last 5 years or so.
Well, absolutely, and we were talking, you know, there but before the grace of God go I, right? So he had these things that were happening to him even back then, but someone followed through this time, right?
Yeah.
And so, and who knows why, or who knows what he said. The other thing that he said is he's noticing politicians all across the country that are pulling back on what they want to say or not being as forthcoming as they'd like to be because they are afraid they're going to offend someone. They are afraid of this very thing.
I thought it was so enlightening when he said, can you imagine being the daughter or the wife and not knowing if you go to the grocery store who might be following you there? It's just, you know, we're happy to report that there's law enforcement outside of all the homes of the elected officials in Minnesota today, but this is an ongoing issue, obviously.
Well, and just speaking of like not knowing what's going to happen, we also spoke with former state senator Jeff Hayden, who we have here on KARE 11.
Wonderful man.
Quite often as one of our political analysts on election nights. And he said the very same thing. He said that his family has been calling him all day. He hasn't been in the legislature for 4 years. His family's been calling him all day, people that he knows, just worried about him. He said, my family doesn't even want me to go to Costco today. And he said, I've been gone out of for 4 years. He said, I don't know if my name was on this list, but he said there was a time when that happened. He worked with both of these.
I was going to say, he's
people.
so well connected and has deep relationships at the Capitol.
Absolutely, and I did get a chance to talk to him about that today, so let's listen in.
She was smart, she was capable, she was approachable, she was courageous, she loved her family. I was said I love to play golf, don't do it that well, and would often see her in a couple of tournaments that I played in. She loved to have you over for a glass of lemonade as you were playing. She just was that type of person, beyond being a very smart and skilled politician and policymaker. It's really unimaginable. I have a friend that lives just a couple blocks away, and he was saying the same thing this morning, that it's just unimaginable. As for John and Yvette, I just wish them a speedy recovery. I know them really well, know their family, and the stories that Yvette was, getting in the way of those bullets so that it didn't hit their daughter Hope, who they love, as we all love our children, beyond what you could imagine, just the courage that they have. And so I wish them a speedy recovery. I will just say, John loves the work. He loved being the chair of the Human Service Committee because it really served his passion, and there is no stronger advocate in this state around people with disabilities than Senator Hoffman, Chair Hoffman. So I wish him a speedy recovery. I hope to, hopefully, in due time, be able to have a good conversation with him. But it is a tragedy of an unimaginable magnitude, and this idea that there's a manifesto and there's a list and other of friends, and I've talked to some other legislators and others that are just can't even fathom and are still really worried that the person's at large and they had intentions for other legislators that appeared.
Yeah, and to think, Rena, that Senator Hoffman, he was just involved in this long-form report with A.J. Legault and the investigative team, and he was working with AJ, not against him. Thank you for bringing us this information about potential fraud with Medicaid and all of these things. He cared and worked with AJ on that. It didn't matter your affiliation, it didn't matter your side of the aisle. It was just in that report that we aired this week and working with it, and AJ's work with Medicaid fraud and trying to move this forward. It's just a shame.